for me, it was never just about breast cancer. The hard parts of our lives are never just about, that one thing. To me, breast cancer was a way for me to actively fight to bring people to God.
Hey there, you're listening to the Girls Talking Life podcast, and I'm your host, Johanna. If you're like me, you love time with friends. I always leave feeling encouraged, inspired to try something different, or I've learned something new. So why not continue to grow even when we can't be with our girlfriends? We're not made to do life on our own. So in each episode of this show, I'll bring you a girl and her story to give you refreshing ideas to stir your soul. Let's walk this road together. Are you ready to talk life? Welcome to the show. I am so honored that you're listening in here. Girls Talking Life is turning 3 years old next month. I'm so excited, and I'm celebrating by giving you the chance to win a gathering in a box from Kaci of At the Lane. She was a guest on episode 69, and this box will give you everything you need to host an intentional gathering of your own. Be sure to follow Girls Talking Life on Instagram and look for the giveaway post next week to enter. October is Breast Cancer Awareness Month, and on the show today, I am talking with breast cancer warrior Kaci Sintek. This girl is amazing. She is sharing the story of her breast cancer journey, and it's full of the things you might expect, like biopsies and surgeries and chemotherapy, but Kaci has so much more to say. And this is not a sad story. It is beyond encouraging. It is for you if you're going through a cancer treatment right now. It is for you if you're going through anything difficult right now. And it's for you if life is good at the moment. Tuck Kaci's words away for when your next trial comes. Kaci had just regained her voice when we recorded this, so it drops off in a couple of places, so please bear with those quieter parts. Here is our conversation. Hey, Kaci, thank you so much for coming on Girls Talking Life.
Yes, thanks for having me.
I know you through Instagram, basically. Online is where we've met, and I've been watching your story, and it is just incredible. So that is why I invited you on. I wanted to talk to you about everything that you've been through in the last couple of years, and just introduce yourself. Let's get started.
Yeah. Well, my name is Kaci Sintek, and I live in Colorado. And up until, the start of the pandemic, I was just living my best life. And then right at the start of the pandemic is when I got diagnosed with breast cancer at the age of 31.
You said that you were diagnosed on April 9th of 2020. What did your life look like before that? You said you were living your best life. You had no worries at all, really?
Yeah. So my mom had been diagnosed with breast cancer twice, earlier in my life, but I never really expected that to be my story so early. Yeah. So, I think I've always tried to live my life, the best way I could, and to really live in the moment. And I haven't gotten away from my fair share of hardship. I actually had my back broken by a guy on meth in a head-on car collision.
Oh my goodness.
The year after I graduated high school. But I think that just even that has kind of taught me, even early on, that life is short, and tomorrow isn't necessarily granted, and that we should live for now, and to, really, really live our best lives, and to, show God as much as we can in all of our, in our everyday. And so, that's kind of how I was living up till April 9th. And then it just kind of took a little spin after that.
What was your initial reaction to your diagnosis?
So I originally was just kind of laying, there one morning in bed, and felt this lump on the side of my chest. And it was kind of odd. I didn't remember feeling it before, but I kind of tried to chalk it up to nothing and just kind of pretend that it was probably something not to be worried about. So I went on for, I think, another week, 2 weeks after that. And then literally in the middle of the night, I woke up, and I kind of talk about this in my book that I wrote, but I woke up in the middle of the night. Don't know exactly what woke me up, but I felt that lump again, and it felt like it demanded to be felt and seen and dealt with. And I just immediately panicked. It was literally like just in the middle of the night, and I was just got on my phone, to try to make an appointment right then to get in to be seen. And it was right at the start of the pandemic. And so it was, kind of hard to get in to see a doctor originally because so many appointments were, being postponed and that kind of thing. And,
Right.
But I ended up getting in to see the doctor. And I'm pretty young. Like I was 31 at the time, and I went in to see my original doctor, and she actually felt it and was kind of not as worried as I thought she would be. And I was surprised by that. I didn't know if she was just trying not to scare me or if she genuinely felt like it was nothing. And she kind of just chalked it up to probably it was likely a hardening of the tissue.
Mm-hmm.
So since my mom had been diagnosed before, she was like, we should still have a mammogram. And so anyway, so when I went to go call to get my mammogram though, the scheduler was like, we're not scheduling any voluntary appointments anytime soon. It was like 3 months later is when they were going to be able to get me in. And I was like, hold up, like, I do not feel okay about that. And so anyways, just advocated for myself, got in actually the very next day. And as we know now, I did have breast cancer. And so just the lead up to it was like kind of a unique experience. But then, going in, because it was COVID times, no one was able to go in with me to any of my appointments ever. But especially that first one was so hard because basically they took the biopsy, like had me do like a mammogram and then an ultrasound and then ultimately a biopsy. They still have to send in the biopsy for it to actually get, confirmed whether it's cancerous or not. But I just remember, looking at my doctor and I was like, well, if it's not cancer, what would it be? And she didn't give me another answer. She just said, I think you know how serious we think it is. And I just, in that moment, it was so hard because, they can't tell you have cancer, but you do.
You didn't really need that confirmation.
Yeah. And but you have to it's like handling that moment somewhat alone, right? And so it felt really, really hard. And then obviously like after that, it takes a few days for results to come, back. But then, just after that, when it's finally confirmed, hey, yes, you do have cancer, it's just a whirlwind of so many appointments. And it's just, it feels like your world is literally like spinning out of control and there's nothing you can do to stop it. So it's definitely really, really hard.
I really can't imagine. I know that fear has got to be in there, just questioning maybe why that happened to you. Like, why is this my current situation? What kind of feelings were you feeling?
I felt like I was being betrayed by God. That's really how I felt. I had been trying to live, life well and for him. And, you try to do the right thing. You try to love people well. You try to volunteer and give back and, all of these things. And, I work for a school. So, just, even like my career, like right now is, trying to be a light for people. Right. And so, I know I have messed up and stuff, but I just, I feel like I was trying so hard. And then when this happened, I was like, why, God? Like, why? Why are you allowing this in my life? I'm trying so hard for you. And, why are you allowing this in my life? Like, this is breaking me. And so, that was definitely like my original thought. And, I also, it's a little off topic, but it's all related, right? But, part of that fear and part of that, hurt, it wasn't just your health. Obviously, you're, terrified about, your health and what that means for your future. But also it has all these other implications, right? So for me, I'm single and I'm not married. I don't have kids. And so all of a sudden I'm having to worry about all of those things too. I'm like who's going to want me when I have cancer, like I'm going to lose all my hair, like the body parts are going to be chopped off, and yeah. And so it's just all of these other fears. Chemo and radiation also impact your fertility. So I ended up also having to go through fertility treatment and freezing my eggs to be able to potentially have kids. And so it's just, yeah, all of those things went through my mind so quickly, right? You're just bombarded with all of these life-altering things, and you're just kind of forced to deal, right? You have to keep moving forward. And so, yeah, it was a lot.
So all of this is going on in your head and all these appointments are happening. And you made the decision that you were going to use this situation to glorify God. It could have gone many other ways, but you made that decision. How did you make that? And when did it happen?
Yeah. So in between, basically, in between the appointment where, they took the biopsy and when, the biopsy results actually came back where they, told me that I had cancer for sure. That's a hard wait time. And so, I was supposed to be working, but I'm like, oh my gosh, I can't think about anything else, right?
Yeah.
Like I could not think about anything else. So I took the day off and I knew that call was going to be coming soon, with those results. And I went and I was driving out. I have a horse that's about 45 minutes away out in, kind of the open spaces of Colorado. And I was driving out there thinking, like what happens if I do have cancer? Like what happens? And I'm like, what am I going to do? And I just had this talk with myself and was like, you know what? If I have cancer, then I'm still going to show that God is good. And I'm going to show that through the hardest part of my life. And I'm going to make sure that people know that even through the hardest parts of our lives, that God is still so good. And Easter was coming up just that weekend. And I was like, I'm going to tell people, if I get diagnosed with breast cancer, I'm going to tell people about my cancer diagnosis on Easter to say that even though I have cancer, God is still with me. He's for me. He loves me. And he loves you too. And literally the moment I decided that and made that like confirmation for myself, that declaration that that's what I was going to do, I got the call. And pulled over on the side of the road, and I knew exactly what it was going to be. I feel like divine timing is a way that I feel like God really speaks to me, and that was a divine timing moment for me. And I knew exactly he was calling me, in more ways than one.
So even though you had made that decision and you wanted to use it to glorify God and you were going to let people know that he was still good, you still had a lot to go through in the last few years.
Yeah.
Just talk to me a little bit about what your journey has looked like.
Yeah. So, right after that diagnosis, I ended up having to do a first mastectomy. I did the fertility treatment in order to freeze my eggs. Mm-hmm. So that was like another surgery. But then they wanted to, do all that prior to chemotherapy. So then I did 5 months of chemotherapy. Following that, I did a month of radiation treatment where I went in pretty much every day. And and now, I continue to be on hormone therapy that I'll be on for, 5 to 10 years, depending. And that's to kind of basically keep anything that might be lingering in my system at bay. I ended up having like abnormal cells on, my other side. And so because of that, and because of my family's history with cancer, I opted for a second mastectomy that I will be doing in November. So we'll be going through that as well, and starting like reconstructive surgery. So yeah, it's a really long, it's a long process, but I guess, I don't know, I sometimes compare it to like other people that are going through other things, and it's like everyone has their own story, and some people are going through much harder things than this.
You mentioned that you're in Colorado, but your family actually does not live here. So your friends and your community have played a really big role in your support system. What does that look like? How has that helped you?
So yeah, I live out in Colorado, and my immediate family all live in Tennessee. And of course, it's in the time of, the COVID quarantine. And so everyone, flights coming
It's
out
not easy to
here.
get places.
Yeah, it's not easy to get places. And especially, obviously, there's a risk at, traveling at all.
Right.
And obviously like bringing that to somebody that's going to be going through treatment. And so, yeah, it made it extremely difficult to be, physically with people. Right. But by the grace of God, I truly believe that God handpicked my roommate, Heidi, to be with me through this time. We literally met on Craigslist and a couple of years back. And then, she was just a perfect, beautiful light of like God's love through this entire journey. But I am so thankful that I walked through this, last year and a half with her. But outside of that, just so many people came around me and showed their love in so many different ways, everything from, meals to prayer to, donating to help me pay for medical bills to just showing up, and, they literally like would hang out in my lawn, so they would still hang out with me, but,
Wow.
we were still safe, and just so many different ways people showed up. And I really believe that like, that's how we best serve each other, right? We come with the gifts and the talents that we were granted to us by God. We bring that, like, that means so much when we can help each other in those ways. And so everybody playing their unique role just helped me so, so, so much throughout the process.
You have written a devotional along with 15 other breast cancer warriors. Talk to me about just the process of writing that and how it played a role, or did it play a role in helping your healing?
Oh, it definitely did. Yeah. So early on, I decided I am going to use my story for something meaningful and to show God. I didn't know exactly how, but I started writing. I launched, a platform where I could start sharing about my breast cancer experience, but also about how God was meeting me in all of these places as well, right? So sharing through writing and through, video, I did like a video journal and stuff like that throughout. I realized how powerful it was for me to be able to narrate what was happening in my life in a way that still gave God glory, right? It wasn't just a sad story of a girl with cancer. It was a powerful story that showed the power of God and the strength of him and the joy that he was able to give me throughout, this time where my world was crashing down. And so, with that, with starting to share there, I realized, if this is helping me, then I know it could help other women as well. I've always wanted to write a book, and I didn't necessarily think it was going to be breast cancer themed, but that's God gives us opportunities to work, and it's just up to us whether or not we take them. And so I took that opportunity, and so I ended up reaching out to a lot of different like breast cancer groups and Christian groups on Facebook and social media, and ended up getting connected with 15 other breast cancer warriors. So women who were going through it the same time I was. and it was really powerful. So they were all from across the United States, and we even had one in Africa. The power of the internet, right?
Yeah.
And yeah, I mean, we all had kind of different stories, but just beautiful ways in which God was working in our lives throughout this. Every woman was chose a verse that they were really, driven by, and was really resonated with them, and a unique part of their breast cancer journey. And then they wrote, a devotion related to that. And so all 15 of them, have different unique stories and different, parts of the breast cancer journey they write about and share about. And then I share throughout in multiple different entries throughout the book. But I look at this book, and it's called Twice the Warrior. It's a breast cancer themed Christian devotional. But I look at this book and I just see God's hand in it. And I'm so proud of it, because I'm so proud that throughout one of my hardest times of my life ever, that I could create something so beautiful that will hopefully be a light to so many others who face breast cancer in the future. He's able to turn, our darkest days into the lightest days, right? Because of just, the power of just changing, flipping the narrative on our story.
It's called Twice the Warrior. Why twice? What does that mean?
Yes. So you always hear a breast cancer warrior, right? And truly it's like fighting, it is like fighting for your life, and just fighting through, all the emotions, fighting through, so much. And, warrior is just such a, it's such a perfect term for it, and the grit that it takes. But for me, it was never just about breast cancer. The hard parts of our lives are never just about, that one thing. To me, breast cancer was a way for me to actively fight to bring people to God. And so I think that we have, this opportunity in the way that we go through our life. And I think that souls are on the line all the time. We look around and our world is hurting. People are aching. Souls are on the line. Like the devil is out for people, and I think it's just our duty as Christians that we try every day in all the ways that we can to try our hardest to bring people to God and to see his glory in their life. So, twice the warrior means, just, yes, you're a breast cancer warrior, but that's not all you were meant to do. You were also meant to fight for souls and to use your story for something so much bigger than just fighting breast cancer. That's only a small part of it, but like the souls that you can win because of this, that's like what ultimately matters most.
Casey, I love that. That is so beautiful.
Yeah.
It's your testimony.
Yeah, it is your testimony. And it can be so powerful.
What encouragement do you have for women who are going through their hardest thing? It might be cancer. It might be their marriage, something with parenting, with their work. What would you say to them?
It's right. Like that's life. We have, we all have those hard times that we have to get through. And if it's not now, it's later, right?
Right.
It's going to happen. And I think for me, one thing that I really had to get to a point but is that God is good. Like he is good. He's not a cruel God. I think at my lowest, I felt so betrayed by God, right? And I'm like, this is just mean. Like, it just feels mean. And it wasn't until I was, I knew that wasn't true, but I didn't feel, I felt like he was being mean. And so I literally one day, I was actually waiting on the results for called a PET scan. So, after I got diagnosed with breast cancer, they then wanted me to go and get another scan done where it tests your entire body for cancer. And I was terrified waiting on those results because that could be the difference between life and death. It's not just fighting breast cancer, it's fighting cancer that could potentially, be throughout your entire body. And when I was waiting on those results, I was struggling so hard. And again, I needed to get out. And so I drove out. To me, like, one of the most powerful places that I feel like I meet God is, in nature. And like, especially for me living in Colorado, it's like being like close to the mountains or in the mountains. I literally drove out to this place where no one was around. And I literally packed up my chair, my lawn chair, and went out into this big field by myself. And I brought a book that one of my friends had given me. And it was a book called It's Not Supposed to Be This Way. I just sat out there and I read by myself. And it was just like a really beautiful day. But like there was like the rain coming in and the clouds forming like over the mountains. You could just see like God's fingerprint in, just the beauty that was just like around me and like swirling around, But as I read through that book, it's all about how God didn't design us to go through this heartache. Like that's not what he intended for our lives. He intended perfect beauty, perfect joy, perfect peace. But it was because he loved us so much, he gave us this gift of choice so long ago. And that's how the fall of man happened. And it goes all the way back to Adam and Eve in that garden. But he loved us enough that he gave us the gift of choice. But he didn't want me to have cancer, right? That was never like his initial intent, right? It wasn't to, make me go through this heartache. But he loved me enough. He loved us enough to give us the gift of choice. And I think it was coming to that realization is that God doesn't want divorce. God doesn't want cancer. God doesn't want broken relationships. He doesn't want poverty. Like he never wanted any of that for us. He doesn't want war. That's not his heart for us. But it is his heart for us to be able to choose him. And, it's that opportunity to come to him and to find peace, to find healing through our broken, in broken relationships, to heal those relationships. It's to find peace on the hardest days when you're diagnosed with cancer. It's to find hope, when things just feel like your world's falling, apart. It's giving us that opportunity to find that in him. And so I think this is kind of a long-winded answer of just, first of all, reminding ourselves that God is good. I've had to change my narrative on the way that I say things because I used to say God gave me cancer. And I don't think that he gave me cancer. I think that he allowed cancer into my life, right? Yes, he could have stopped it, right? And I think that's sometimes hard to swallow. Just like he can stop other things from happening. But that gift of choice is created these things that we're, dealing with in our lifetime and things challenging, but he's still there. He's still the same good, beautiful, perfect, loving God that he has always been. And I think knowing that can change your entire perspective. Knowing that is kind of the foundation for everything. And then from there, you're also given a choice every single day. Then what do you do with that? Knowing that he's not just setting you up for, to kill you off, or to make you just go through all this hurt and heartache. That's not his heart for you. So what is his heart for you? What are you supposed to learn? What promises does he have for your life? And how do you move from this dark spot to really believing he allowed this into your life for a reason? And so what is that reason? What can your powerful story look like? What can it look like? And what opportunities is he opening the door for by allowing, this hard thing to enter your life? And yeah, just for example, for my story, I don't know if I ever would have, written a book if it wasn't for this, and I say it powerfully, but like this beautiful opportunity, that he allowed into my life to happen, that now I was able to write this book and meet all of these wonderful, amazing women from across the United States and Africa, and now get to speak into hopefully multiple people's, women's lives in the future, and be, meet people like you, and, what a gift. And just reminding yourself that there's God has so much for you, and it's going to be so exciting, but you gotta shift your perspective and believe that he's good.
I love that you called it a beautiful opportunity.
Yeah.
Yeah, that takes a big perspective shift. Wow.
Yeah, it's kind of funny. It just reminded me of when I was in the cancer unit. It's like the 12th floor. It's like the very top floor of the hospital building. It has this beautiful view of Denver. But that's where I had basically like all of my chemo treatment and stuff. And when you go in there, obviously for a couple hours while you get your chemo treatments, getting pumped into your body, yay. And, I'm sitting there. I don't have hair that, I'm wearing a wig. This is a wig that I'm wearing now. And there's a social worker that goes around and talks to people as they're getting their chemo treatment. And again, there's no one else that can come in with me. So I'm, sitting alone. And, he came over to me, the social worker did, and was talking to me. And, he's like, how are you feeling? And, I'm like, it's a weird feeling. It really is. And you're going to probably think I'm really strange for saying this, but I'm like, as hard as it is to be here, I'm so thankful for it too. And I think that kind of like threw him back a little bit, because he was like, what, why, and I'm like, I really am, like, and that sounds so odd, but I'm like, my heart has always been just so, I get so much meaning out of, trying my best to help people, and, walking through those hard parts of life with them. And to me, that's so fulfilling, is to be able to walk with people through that and to make their burden a little bit lighter. Right. And I just was there, and I was like, I might be the first one out of my friends to walk through this. And it kind of sucks. It does. I'm not going to say it doesn't. But I'm thankful that it was me first, I'm thankful that I now have this understanding of how it goes and the hard things and, what makes it easier. And I have this perspective, a different perspective, this greater sense of empathy moving forward. And so that I can then use that to help, my friends, my family, that might have to go through it in the future, or to help people prevent it, right? Breast cancer in general, or just this perspective that I wouldn't have had otherwise. And this perspective, not just about breast cancer, but about life and about the hard things and going through them. It's such a bizarre feeling, but I think that that's God's hand, mighty hand in my life, is just this joy that he just threw into my soul, through the Holy Spirit, of just, you're okay. You're okay. And I've got you. And I'm going to be able to use you even more now, because you leaned into this and are allowing me to like use you through this. Yeah, these hard parts of our lives, they really can be these beautiful opportunities, and it's kind of all the way, in the way that we look at it. And it goes back to just knowing that God is good. He is.
Kaci, I want to get to know you just a little bit better. So I want to ask you for your favorite 5. What are 5 things that you are drinking or watching or doing right now that are your favorites?
Oh man. Okay. Well, I wrote down 5 favorite things, but I didn't realize it was supposed to be like that. So I'm going to tell you what I wrote down 5 favorite things about. So 5 top things that have pushed me outside of my comfort zone and things that I will never forget. Okay. So, so these are my top 5 things. The first one was kayaking with whales. They were like literally like 15 feet away from us. It wasn't a planned thing, but there's these whales that ended up, popping up right beside us when we were out sea kayaking. So that was amazing. My second one was a long time ago. I auditioned for American Idol and made it to like the top 20 in Salt Lake, which was so cool.
How
And so I
exciting.
got to, meet the judges and all of that. Another thing was I ran a marathon. I am not a great runner by any means, but it was always kind of on my bucket list. So me and two of my other girlfriends made a commitment to each other, and we all ran a marathon together.
A full marathon.
Really great. Yeah, I mean, I walked some, but I still count it. I was like, the fact that I made it through.
That's a long way to go. So good for you.
Yeah. And then I put paragliding in Interlaken, Switzerland. So I love like adrenaline things, but I am really afraid of heights. But Switzerland is gorgeous. It's so gorgeous. And then we went paragliding, and it was just the coolest thing ever. And then I put skydiving. Again, I'm so afraid of heights, but I was like, I'm doing this. I'm conquering my fears. And it was, just like a super cool experience. And then I put a sixth one just because it was a recent one, but it's this thing. I did this thing called the Via Ferrata in Telluride, Colorado. And it's basically like kind of like rock climbing, but it's more you're kind of traversing like sideways on a instead of just like up and down. It's like sideways on a cliffside. And so this like one area is literally like 600 feet in the air, and you're literally just like, dangling by like a little clip, and you're standing on this like tiny little piece of rebar. And so I just like, I don't know, I like love those experiences that always just make you feel small, I guess, like those, things where it's just like, wow, like our world is so big, so beautiful.
You've done some really amazing things for not liking heights.
I know. Yeah. I'm scared of heights, but I love those things that like push you outside of your comfort zone for sure.
Well, thank you for sharing those. Those were great. And Kaci, you are phenomenal. I am so glad to have met you, to hear more details of your story. I mean, I definitely want anyone who is struggling with cancer right now to hear you, but I want everyone to hear you because, I mean, you are so positive and you're pointing to God for all the glory, and you just have the best perspective on anything. So I'm so grateful that you've shared here and that I've gotten to meet you.
Yeah, me too, for sure. Yeah. Thank you so much for just inviting me to chat and to be part of this. Appreciate you.
Thank you so much for listening. Didn't I tell you she's amazing? She's able to be thankful for the beautiful opportunity God's given her to show His love. What a perspective. I only hope that when I face my next trial, that I can do it with the grace and the courage that Kaci does. Is there a hard thing going on in your life where you need to change the narrative? Grab Kaci's book, Twice the Warrior. Gift it to your friend. Share this show with a woman who needs to hear this encouragement. Okay, here are your reminders. Do your self-examination. Get your annual mammogram if you're old enough. If you're not old enough for regular mammograms, but you find something suspicious, advocate for yourself to get checked out just the way Kaci did. As usual, everything that we talked about can be found in the show notes for this episode on girlstalkinglife.com. Friends, don't let the conversation stop when the show is over. Share your stories and start your own conversations with the girls in your life. I will see you back here in 2 weeks. Be sure to look for that Instagram post for the birthday giveaway. Thanks for tuning in.